casting a shadow over all of sports. It's huge. Sportsblimp.
Hey everyone, it's Will Regan here in the one and only Sportsblimp. With me as always is our stalwart sports enthusiast and historian and all-around expert on the wild and wonderful world of sports, Monsieur Eric Rantman.
Merci, mon ami, as the French and some people who want to sound like they're French say. We're continuing our European tour, and today the mighty Sportsblimp is aloft over Luxembourg for the annual Farmer Olympics, where we'll be covering the Squash Luge today.
You know, I hate squash.
But as a racing vehicle, it's got something going on. Have you ever sat in a squash?
Only once, at a party, and not by choice.
Many of the earlier competitors were compelled to ride in these specially prepared squash against their will,
working off a court-imposed sentence for traffic violations.
The Squash Luge is one of the fastest sports on the planet. The riders recline in some of the biggest squash in the world, carved out to accommodate their bodies, and this one, to be driven by Brandon Fleet this year, was carved out of a giant green squash weighing in at over 2,000 pounds, 2,118 pounds to be exact. It was flown here from Friedrich's Farm in Warren, Rhode Island, and it owned the title of the world's largest.
Most people understand the luge to be a small sled, normally ridden in a supine position, but in squash luge, the rider is in more of a sitting position, often with a reluctant date on his lap.
I was forced to ride a squash luge during Pledge Week for a fraternity.
Oh, you mean Power Harassment Week?
Tig Bendergolf, who was pretty much the Michael Jordan of squash luge, has been a champion since the age of 12, when his brother sent him down a sloshy, snow-coated hill near their home in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Yeah, I know Tig. We see the same therapist, because I'm trying to get over the same kind of stuff, mostly eggplant and cauliflower.
So,
you were saying?
Bendergolf, as usual, wowed the crowds in his one-man plummet. That's where they start at a gradual incline, accelerate, and then shoot over what is essentially a frozen waterfall.
There's got to be a moment, I think, as you're flying through midair on a giant squash rind and you go, maybe I'll give dental school another try.
But the real surprise was a virtual unknown named Randy Gary Nathan, an American boy from Hushfields, Wyoming, who stunned the crowd by breaking Bendergolf's record in the squash downhill mud slalom.
Right? Some of these guys, right? They're like, what am I doing up here in a giant squash rind flying through the air? Like, this is my life. I'm flying on vegetables. Which first name is his first name? Is it Gary?
Yes. I mean, no, the key is the comma that's not there.
Which?
You see a comma after one of his names, then likely they've moved one of the names, changing the order, So in this case, I think it would be safe to say Randy Gary Nathan's first name is Randy. Randy Gary Nathan took home the Golden Vine. And already, you can read that on the Squash Luge boards.
And the Farmer's Almanac.
A new generation of lugers is ready to replace the old.
Wow, just one more reason for Tig Bendergolf to go see his therapist.
And we'll have exciting luge competition coming up before you know it. So we'll try to give you a warning.
But right now, speaking of Randy Gary Nathan, it's time for another up-close and in-your-face player profile. Today's player profile is made possible by Wright & Wong Legal Services.
Randy Gary Nathan was born Randy-Gary Nathan, his mother's maiden name. But Randy dropped the hyphen when he married his adopted sister. Like most young men, Randy loved to go fast. His foster father Larry, who was later adopted, used to push young Randy down a loading chute at the nearby dry ice factory in their hometown of Smith, Missouri. Randy quickly got over the terror and took to liking the thrill of it. Randy and his cousin Bengo would take turns launching each other off the second-story roof of their reform school onto the snowdrifts below, blindfolded. Before long, these young men were craving even more speed, tying their skateboards to the back of police cars and calling 911 on their cell phone. Sometime later, the Sheriff Deputy Association took up a collection and paid their college tuition, including boarding at a far-off school. Some say to get them out of town.
Yeah!
As you know, Randy and his cousin went on to become world doubles champions in Squash Luge competition around the globe. Then, in 1998, Randy and his cousin Bingo defeated during a competition in Utah where they were granted asylum at the Pinhope Asylum for the Criminally Competitive, where they often watch videos of their many high school pranks. Randy Gary Nathan, world-class ass and Squash Luge champion.
Awesome!
Someone you would likely meet in a holding cell on a Saturday night. Today's player profile is made possible by Wright & Wong Legal Services.
Luge riders hurtle down a slippery ice track at great speed, relying only on their reflexes for steering.
Unlike bobsled, however, they have no protection should they make an error. They're just kind of hanging out there.
Yeah. Did you know that luge is the French word for sledge? And like bobsled, it was developed as a sport in Switzerland. Its roots go back to the 16th century, but it was not until 300 years later that the first luge tracks were built by Swiss hotel owners to cater to thrill-seeking tourists.
And here we are, seeking thrills and chills.
And it is a bit chilly up there in the brisk blue Luxembourg skies.
And speaking of skies, it's time for a word from one of our loyal sponsors back home, Flying Freddy DuPont Airlines and Meal Delivery Service in the greater Great Lakes region. Here's a question for you. Why limit your enjoyment of airline food to your next flight when you can treat yourself anytime to reheated gourmet goodies? This month, Flying Freddy is featuring the dish you might enjoy on a flight to, Germany. Try deep dish chicken pot pie. Was that schnitzel still crispy? Mostly. All delivered right to your seat, at home. Answer the door to an airline service trolley. The shiny aluminum foil-covered delicacies await you. And you can tell the online flight attendant at Flying Freddy's that you want gluten-free. And it's your guess whether it really will be or not. Your hot coffee and plastic cup of so-so wine will complete the delightfully overcrowded tray. Pick up your plasticware and dig in. And don't forget your mystery dessert. Is that a pineapple slice on top? Maybe. Flying Freddy's airline and meal delivery service. And you don't even have to take off your shoes or your belt. Download the app today.
And there's the... And we're just about ready for competition to begin.
Let's go to our man on the ground this week, County Coroner Dr. Ivan Grundig. Dr. Grundig will fill us in on some of the color and injuries today. Doctor, good to have you with us.
Thank you. I'm happy to be of service. There should be some horrible injuries today.
We worked with Dr. Grundig at the Swedish nose wrestling elimination match in Stockholm. Am I right?
I will never forget that. That was the year that Sven Hudegard was disqualified for chin interference.
With a mandibular prominence like Hudegard presented, it would have been hard to avoid.
Yeah.
But today we're all about Squash Luge. And we have some of the fastest teams on the circuit competing.
And this year, some of the finest crop of squash in many years. They've carved out some beauties.
This brand of luge competition is much more fun to watch because on the squash, there's very little steering, as I said earlier.
Pretty much just a semi-rounded undersurface to glide along the ice track, going just about anywhere it wants to go.
The challenge for the riders is simply to hang on.
And not be squashed. And if they do wander off the track, as often happens, they have to be ready to fit into the new environment quickly.
Yeah, and that new environment would be like landing in a herd of grazing cattle, for example, as happened to one of our competitors during the qualifications.
Or a brothel, which one loser did last week.
So how fast is the track today? Let's see if we can go back down to trackside and ask Dr. Grundig. Doctor, you took a test run yourself today, am I right?
That's right, Eric. One way to get a reading on the condition of the track and its relative smoothness is to put a clock on it. That is to send someone down the track from start to finish. They usually pick someone out of the crowd, but today was Salute to the Media Day, so they picked me.
What an honor.
Well,
The track begins on the mountain ridge, approximately 5,500 feet above sea level, and ends a mile later at an altitude of about 7 feet.
it's a drop of 5,500 feet in a mile.
That's almost straight down.
One really flies. Yes, gravity's not your friend. As I reach speeds of 900 feet per second.
And that's faster than most people can think.
So, you sat in the carved-out squash and went speeding down that course?
Not exactly, no. I sat in nothing. Someone just gave me a shove at the top, and away I went.
So, did your timing indicate a fast track today?
Well, nobody timed it. I think they just wanted to see a member of the media slide down the track while screaming all the way to the bottom.
Our first team is about to shove off at the track top as they get into position.
Their feet pointing downhill and their heads in the clouds.
Literally.
Yes, last night's snowstorm clouds are still hanging around the mountaintop.
Our first team is national champion Rush Overplots, and his anchorman is Richard Shag. The anchor cradled on his stomach as he lays there like a cute little otter guarding its stash of crayfish, waiting for the lunch whistle.
Looks like we're ready for the first run, although they will be leaving cloaked in the clouds with not much visibility at all, am I right?
Yes, because of that limited visibility, Rush Overplots is not wearing his blindfold.
Probably doesn't feel any need for it today.
And there's the whoa that we always hear as the starter gives a hearty shove with his left foot.
Oh, as happens all too often, the starter lost his balance in the shove and is now following our first team, slithering down the course.
We can only hope he doesn't catch up.
So we have a great view of the course from the Sportsblimp as the speeding squash carries our racing pair toward the bottom of this steep course at breakneck speed.
I assume you can hear the rescue dogs along the course with their flasks of morphine strapped around their necks. They're approaching the first turn at full speed.
We can see anchorman Richard Shag raising the anchor, readying to toss it over in case they approach the first turn too fast.
And there it goes. The anchor clawing at the icy track, doing its best to slow the squash.
Looks like it grabbed a little too hard as it brings the squash to a sudden stop, catapulting our first competitors forward and over the course rails.
And there's the whistle that alerts the dogs to go chase down the lugers who are still airborne.
I didn't hear the whistle, did you?
No,
It's a dog whistle, gentlemen.
Of course, but how do we know it actually works?
It's like that old riddle. If a dog whistles and nobody is around to hear it, does that mean dogs can't whistle?
Sounds like our team finally landed and are being located by the rescue dogs.
Oh, gee, I hope they didn't hit a tree. They just planted some new ones last year.
I'm sure some of those dogs will be happy to find a tree.
Let's take advantage of this lull in the action to hear a word about one of our loyal sponsors.
Spike's Western Wear in North Moss, Colorado. Spike's has the biggest selection of boots and apparel in North or South Moss. Ladies, how long has it been since you gussied up in a hoop skirt? Maybe as a little girl you dreamed of dressing like a Southern belle and getting the vapors. Looking for skirts? Spike's got them in tan, beige, off-white, off-beige, and nicotine-stained colors. And here's our special this week, 100% cotton 5-bone hoop skirt, floor length. And this one comes pre-fitted for a propane burner that straps to your ankles. Completely out of sight. It'll gently fill the skirt with heated air to keep it puffed up on a chilly fall night in the harvest ball. And some of the ladies have even reported a little liftoff in this beautiful hot air hoop skirt from Spike's Western Wear. Come and see it, try it on. A matching helmet and handbag is a nice accessory too.
Way back when, I rented a nice tux from Spike's.
Oh, what was the occasion?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, was it a wedding or a prom or something?
No.
That's Spike's Western Wear in North Moss, Colorado, right across from the Detour sign. And speaking of detour,
our first Squash Luge team, Rush Overplots and Richard Shagg, just left the course on turn 1. The radar clocked them at over 320.
Sheriff Smithers said that's as high as his radar gun goes, and you know what? That's as high as my bathroom scale goes, too.
Dr. Grundig, do you have word yet on their condition?
The dogs are still trying to revive them, and they landed nowhere near a tree, so that's a good sign.
Our next team is at the top of the track, ready to queue up by the starter. Now, this pair, consisting of Hiram Lumbar and Tracy Kardashkian, shows us a slightly different form. Doctor, can you help us out?
Yes, Will. As you may remember in the qualifying run, which few survive, Hiram finished, but he broke his ankle.
That means he won't be on Dancing with the Stars this season.
Tracy is obviously trying to protect that ankle, so he's positioned himself head first, leading with his head.
And he likely will be wearing that blindfold.
Well, I'm sorry to say, since we have to land and gas up.
Running low.
So, what happens when a blimp runs out of fuel?
Well, not much, really.
We want to thank local coroner, Dr. Ivan Grundig, for bringing us his commentary from the ground.
It's been terrifying, as always.
Well, next time, the Sportsblimp will be flying over the Squat Ball Hall of Fame in Lucyville, South Dakota, for the induction ceremony. Squat Ball fans will be there to honor a true legend of the game, Kirk Kreskin, finally achieving the adoration his older brother got when he was alive.
More about that next time.
Great Kreskin.
For Eric Rantman and myself, we wish you more than a sporting chance here at the Sportsblimp All Sports Network.
Sportsblimp is produced and distributed with a grant from the Goodyear Dirigible Company in Bucyrus, Ohio. Many of America's other favorite sports are played in the shadow of the Sportsblimp.